this is Carla and welcome back to the studio and thank you for joining me for another episode of Step It Up Saturday. So for this Saturday, I will be featuring the Sweetest Cherries bundle. Let me turn my punch around. It features the Sweetest Cherries photopolymer stamp set and the Cherry Builder punch. Okay, so for my first card, for my cardstock pieces, I have a piece of Blackberry Bliss. This measures 8.5 by 5.5 and it's scored at 4.25. I have a piece of Berry Burst. This measures 5 by 3.75. I have a piece of Basic White. This measures 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. I have a 3 by 2.5 inch piece scrap. Back up. A 3 by 2.5 inch scrap of Basic White cardstock. And then I have 2 scraps that measure 3.5 by 1 of Basic White. So to start off, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. Okay. And then this Berry Burst piece, I'll be gluing to the top of that. I'm going to set that aside for the moment. And then for these pieces, I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm going to bring in my stamps and the colors of ink that I'll be using for this project. I have my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Do it this way, it'll be a little bit easier. I have Berry Burst, Blackberry Bliss, Granny Apple Green, and Pool Party. So I will start off with stamping my greeting that says friend down in the bottom left-hand corner of the piece of Basic White. I'm going to ink this up really well, and I'm going to stamp it right down here. Like so. Okay. And then I'm also going to bring in my Pool Party ink. And I'm going to use this weaved type of pattern image stamp. And I'm going to ink it up in my Pool Party. And I'm going to stamp that off about the center and towards the right hand side. Like so. Okay. And we're done with our Pool Party. Now I'm going to stamp the pieces. Now, actually, let's go ahead and let me close this first. And I can take this piece and I can adhere it onto my Berry Burst and then to my card base. And just center that. There's going to be a small border around my Basic White. And then I'm going to adhere this to my Blackberry Bliss. And this is going to have a bigger border around it. Okay. And now I'll set that aside and we're going to stamp our pieces. So on this larger piece, this is the 3 by 2.5. I'm going to bring in the cherry and my Berry Burst ink and my Blackberry Bliss. And then I'm also going to bring in a scrap piece of paper because I'm going to stamp off before I stamp onto my cardstock. So I'm going to ink it up really well, and I'm going to stamp one down in this lower left hand corner. I'm just going to hold it there for a moment so the ink transfers. Okay, and then I'm going to clean my stamp. I have my Stampin' Scrub right off to the side here, so I'm going to quickly clean that off. Make sure that's dry. And then I'm going to ink it up in my Blackberry Bliss. I'm going to stamp that off. And I'm going to stamp it in the lower left hand. I just flipped my cardstock over and I'm stamping it down in this corner. Okay. I'm going to quickly clean off my stamp. Okay, so we're done with that. And we're done with these inks. Okay, and I'm going to set that aside. And then for these two pieces, I'm going to stamp my leaves, and I'm going to use my Granny Apple Green. And I'm going to look at the bottom of my punch to see how these two pieces are oriented in the punch, because then I'll stamp it so it'll go in right. So I'm going to take I'm going to take this sleeve and I'm going to stamp off, and I will stamp one on this side, and then I'll ink it up again, stamp it off, and I'll stamp one on the opposite end of this cardstock. Okay, and I'll set that aside, and I'm done with this ink. And then I'm going to bring my black ink in again. And for the other scrap piece, now I'm done with this, with that scrap piece of paper. So I'm going to bring in the stem and I'm going to ink this up, and I'm not going to stamp off on this. And so I'm going to put one down on this end, flip it around, and I'll stamp another on the opposite end. Okay, so we're done with our stamping. And then I'm going to bring in my punch, and I'm going to punch out I just want to make sure I don't punch the other cherry. And I'm going to flip this over to punch it so I don't have a bunch of pieces fly all over the place. And then I'll do this one. Okay. We'll get rid of all these little excess pieces. So there's our two cherries. And then I'm going to come in, let's see, I'll make sure I get this lined up. There we go. Now I'll look right over this because the shadows of the light, it's kind of hard to see. Make sure I got it punched, giving it an even border. And then I got this piece. Come in here, line it up. Okay, there's our other leaf. And then I'm going to punch out the stems. Okay. Alright, so now let me bring in my card, bring in my pieces and my adhesive, and I'm going to attach my Blackberry Bliss cherry. Let's see, put that right there. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella, and I'm going to add some onto this. Now what I want to avoid doing, where the white shine parts are on this, I want to avoid going over that because the Wink of Stella is picking up some of this ink, and it will go ahead and blend it into that white area if I went right over it. Okay. And then I'm just going to clean off my brush. It does have some of the ink on there. And then I'm going to bring in the Berry Burst cherry. And I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to add that right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some Wink of Stella onto this. It not only makes it sparkle, but it just makes the color a little more vibrant. Gives it a little more pop. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my stems and my liquid glue. I'm just going to add a little bit. Let's see, I'm bringing my Take Your Pick tool. Just press that down. And then I'm bringing my other stem. I'm going to place this right here. We'll just overlap a little bit. Okay, and then for my leaves, I'm going to use my liquid glue. And I'm going to add this one here. And then my other one. I'm going to add this one here, covering up those stem ends. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my iridescent rhinestone basic jewels, and I'm going to use these medium-sized ones, and I'm going to add one on each of these cherries. And then I'm going to add another one right up here in between the stems. Okay, so that is our first card. On to our second. Okay, so for our second card, I have a piece of basic white thick. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. I have a piece of the 2022 to 2024 in color DSP. This is the Sweet Sorbet pattern that's in that pack. I have a 3.5 by 3.5 inch scrap of basic white. I have a piece of Sweet Sorbet. This measures 4.5 by 1.25 inch. This also is a scrap. I have a 3 by 1 1/4 inch scrap of lemon lime twist, and I have a 5 1/4 by 1/2 inch scrap of basic black. So to start off, let me move all this aside. I'm going to fold and then burnish my card base. Okay, and I'm going to set, well, no, we're going to need this here. So I'm going to set aside this paper because what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of stamping on our card base, and then we're going to be adding this piece of paper onto the base. So I'm going to set that aside for the moment. So on these pieces, on with the punch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch out the 2 leaves from this piece. So this is going to be part of the video where I'm going to speed up. So I'm going to do I'm going to do my stamping first. When I go to do my punching and die cutting, I'm going to speed that up. So I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to punch the 2 leaves out from that piece. Then for my piece of basic black, I'll cut out 2 of the stems. And then for this piece of basic white, I'll be using this die, and that die comes from the Stylish Shapes dies. And then in addition to this stamp set that we're using, I will also be using the Share a Milkshake for this one. I'll be using this little cherry stamp and this little image here, which I believe this is supposed to be the shadow to the spoon, but this will also make great leaves for our cherry. So what I'm going to do is let me put this punch aside because I'm going to go and stamp 2 of these cherries in my sweet sorbet. Ink this up. I'm going to stamp one on this side. And then I'll ink it up and stamp another one over on this side. Okay. We'll leave that out. So I'll set this aside because we'll punch these out. So for my card base, so I have my sweet sorbet ink and my lemon lime twist. And let me bring in my scrap of paper that I was using because I'll be stamping off on the edge of my card base. So let me make sure I got it right. Okay. So here's my little stamps. And I'm going to randomly stamp my cherry on the left-hand side of my card base. I'm going to just randomly stamp them. So I'm going to bring in my paper just to see how far over to go. So that's good. Okay, then I'm going to add just one more up here. Okay, that's good. And I'll close this up. And then for this, I'm going to use this little image, and I'm just going to randomly put these leaves at the stem. So at the time that I'm recording this video, it's the evening of Monday, January 8th, and I don't know how the weather is by you. I think up north I believe you're getting snow. Here, it's in Memphis. It's been raining and it's been windy and the temps have been like in the 40s. And then of course we got the wind, so it's just one of those nights that you're just glad to be inside in your nice, comfy, warm home. Okay, so we got a few more to add some leaves on. When I got this Share a Milkshake stamp set, I never even thought about that you could use this one image as leaves for the cherries. Pretty cool. Okay, so that stamping is done. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll add my adhesive to this piece. And then I'm going to add it to this side of my card base. Hopefully I can get it on here straight. Have this completely stick down. Of course it does this when you're doing a video. And I did make my card sample on this. I didn't have this problem. So clearly it's whenever you turn the camera on and you start to film, that's when things go wrong. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside. Just can't move it, so I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to bring in my cut and emboss machine and I will die cut this and then I will punch out these pieces and I will be right back. Okay, so let's assemble our card. So I'm going to bring in my circle and I'm just going to arrange these to see how I want to place them. Okay, put this one here and that one there. Okay, so let me move those out of the way. Let me bring in my adhesive. And then, let's see. I'll make sure that I have them at a good height. So just like what I did before with the Wink of Stella, I'm going to add some onto my cherry before I adhere the other one. And this one I'm not going to worry about going over that shine mark on it since the cardstock is the sweet sorbet. Okay, and then I'm going to add some adhesive to my other cherry. And I'm going to place that one right there. I'm going to do the same thing. Add some Wink of Stella to this. Okay, and then, let's see, then I'm going to bring in my liquid glue to put down these stems. I'm just going to add a little bit. And then, let's see, I'm bringing take your pick tool, just to kind of help me with placing this down. Like so. Okay, and do the same thing with the other stem. And I'll add this one over here. And press this one down too. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my leaves. And I'm going to add some liquid glue to these. Because these pieces are smaller, it's just easier to use the liquid glue rather than try to make a mess with the seal. And then take our other one and we'll add that one right there. Okay, close up our glue. And then let me bring this in because I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this. Okay. Excuse me. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to place this in the middle of my card like so. Press that down. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my glue dots and I'm going to add 2 right here at the ends of these leaves. And I'm going to remove the paper backings from this. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my black and white gingham ribbon and I'm going to tie a small bow. Yeah, I can hear that rain hitting my back window. Sometimes it comes down heavy and sometimes it's light. And earlier there was actually a couple of claps of thunder. But they're not saying that we're getting anything severe here. They just mentioned that now until I think about noontime, I think on Wednesday, that we do have the wind advisory. But I believe down south of here, like in Mississippi and down on those Gulf Coast areas, that they're getting the severe stuff. So praying that they don't get anything bad like tornadoes or anything like that. And even for those that are up north, the snow. I know how much snow you can get up north because that's where I'm originally from. So I've been used to it. Okay, so then the one more thing that we're going to use is the rhinestone basic jewels. And I'm going to add 3 of these little tiny ones on my card. Add one there. And then we'll add one right over here. Okay, so that is our second card. So let me move this out of the way and let me bring in our other card. So we started off with this one with our Blackberry, Bliss, and Berry Burst, so more of a purplish cherry. And then we did this whole red and white one. So if you had liked these projects, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. It does help me in building the channel and helping me in building my business. So I thank you for joining me. And for those of you that are dealing with the weather, even though this won't air until Saturday, I pray and I hope that you didn't get really bad and really severe where you're living. So until the next time, bye bye for now, everyone, and be blessed.